Hey, welcome back to Scripture Study with Smithy. We're going to talk about the next bit of Samson, chapter 15, verse 9. We're starting in. We just heard about how he destroyed the Philistines with a great slaughter because they had killed his wife and family, her family. And the Philistines went up and pitched in Judah and spread themselves in Lehi. And the men of Judah said, "Why are ye come up against us?" And they answered, "To bind Samson are we come up, and to do to him as he hath done to us." So they wanted vengeance for what he had done to the Philistines, which he killed them with a great slaughter, right? And then 3,000 men of Judah went to the top of the rock Etam and said to Samson, "Knowest thou not that the Philistines are rulers over us?" Okay, so the Philistines are ruling the land. They had been for 40 years, right? What is it? What is this that thou hast done unto us? So he's put them in this precarious situation because of what's done. But they don't realize that it's the Lord that's been inspiring it. And he said unto them, "As they did unto me, so have I done unto them." So he was taking revenge. And they said unto him, "We are come down to bind thee, that we may deliver thee into the hand of the Philistines." So they were openly honest, saying what they were going to do to him. And Samson said unto them, "Swear unto me that ye will not fall upon me yourselves." And they spake unto him, saying, "No, but we will bind thee fast and deliver thee into their hand. But surely we will not kill thee." And they bound him with 2 new cords and brought him up from the rock. So that's interesting that he said, "Swear unto me that you don't kill me, like don't betray me." Like he's quite happy to go with them because he loved his people. He was trying to honor them, but he's a Nazarite, right? So he's very faithful in that. So yeah, this is interesting. He's happy to go with them as long as they don't kill him. And when he came into Lehi, the Philistines shouted against him, and the Spirit of the Lord came mightily upon him, and the cords that were upon his arms became as flax that was burnt with fire, and his bands loosed from off his hands. And he found a new jawbone of an ass, and put forth his hand, and took it, and slew 1,000 men therewith. Okay, so they brought him to the Philistines. The Philistines were shouting against him, probably preparing to kill him, right? But the Spirit of the Lord came with him, burnt his bands, the strong new cords they'd bound him with, brand new cords, but they became as flax and burnt. And he found a jawbone and killed 1,000 of them. And Samson said, "With the jawbone of an ass, heaps upon heaps. With the jaw of an ass have I slain 1,000 men." And it came to pass, when he had made an end of speaking, that he cast away the jawbone out of his hand, and called the place Ramath Lehi. And he was sore athirst, and called on the Lord, and said, Thou hast given this great deliverance into the hand of thy servant. And now shall I die for thirst, and fall into the hand of the uncircumcised? But God opened up the basin that was at Lehi, or a spring, and there came water there out. And when he had drunk, his spirit came again, and he revived. Wherefore he called the name thereof in Hakor, which is in Lehi unto this day. Or there's the in Hakor means the spring of him who calls. And he judged Israel in the days of the Philistines 20 years. Okay, so that's the end of chapter 15. So Samson was taking retribution, and the Lord inspired him, right? So the Spirit of the Lord came upon him mightily, and he was able to kill 1,000 people with the jawbone of an ass. The Lord was using him to afflict the Philistines because they were a wicked people. They had the Israelites in bondage. Well, because the Israelites had been wicked as well. That's why they were in bondage. But the Lord was using him to afflict the Philistines. So let's go into the next chapter, chapter 16. Then went Samson to Gaza and saw there an harlot. Now this is, I don't think there's any excuse for this, being someone who's separated himself to the Lord and consecrated his life to the Lord, why he would go into a harlot, but he does. Then went Samson to Gaza and saw there an harlot and went in unto her. And it was told the Gazites, meaning the people that lived in Gaza, saying, Samson has come hither. So his name was being spread abroad. Everyone knew who he was. And they compassed him in. So they circled him and laid wait for him all night in the gate of the city, and were quiet all the night, saying, in the morning, when it is day, we shall kill him. Okay, so they circled him in the nighttime, and they laid wait for the morning. But Samson lay till midnight, and arose at midnight, and took the doors of the gate of the city, and the 2 posts, and went away with them, bar and all, and put them upon his shoulders, and carried them up to the top of an hill that is before Hebron. So when I read that, I laughed. He took the whole gate and the posts, the bar and all. He took it and put it up on, carried him to the top of an hill that is before Hebron. I'm not sure why he did that, but that just cracked me up. And it came to pass afterward that he loved a woman in the valley of Shorek, whose name was Delilah. And the lords of the Philistines came up unto her, and said unto her, entice him, and see wherein his great strength lieth, and by what means we may prevail against him, that we may bind him to afflict him. And we will give thee, every one of us, 1,100 pieces of silver. Okay, so remember, his first wife was getting hard pressed because they were going to burn her with fire, right? Which they ended up doing in the end anyway. Now they come to Delilah, and it's all about money. And Delilah said to Samson, tell me, I pray thee, wherein thy great strength lieth, and wherein thou mightest be bound to afflict thee. You know, she could have said no, but she didn't. And Samson said unto her, if they bind me with 7 green withs that were never dried, then shall I be weak, and be as other men. Then the cords of the Philistines brought up to her 7 green withs, which had not been dried, and she bound him with them. Now there were men lying in wait, abiding with her in the chamber. So there's people who come into the chamber, lying in wait for him to lose his strength so they can take him. Like she said unto him, the Philistines be upon thee, Samson. And he brake the withs as a thread of tow is broken with it when it touched the fire, so his strength was not known. And Delilah said unto Samson, behold, thou hast mocked me, and told me lies. Now tell me, I pray thee, wherewith thou mightest be bound. So she's having a go at him, saying that he's mocking her and telling her lies, when she is deceiving him. So she could get 1,100 pieces of silver. Talk about pot calling the kettle black. And he said unto her, if they bind me fast with new ropes that were never occupied, then shall I be weak as another man. Delilah therefore took new ropes and bound him therewith, and said unto him, the Philistines be upon thee, Samson. And there were liers in wait. There were liers in wait, abiding in the chamber again. So they're lying in wait again. And he brake them from off his arms like a thread. And Delilah said unto Samson, hitherto thou hast mocked me and told me lies. Tell me wherewith thou mightest be bound. And he said unto her, if thou weavest the 7 locks of my head with the web, or the web of a loom. And she fastened it with the pin, and said unto him, the Philistines be upon thee, Samson. And he awaked out of his sleep, and went away with the pin of the beam, and with the web. And she said unto him, how canst thou say, I love thee, when thine heart is not with me? Thou hast mocked me these 3 times, and hast told me wherein thy great strength lies. And it came to pass that when she pressed him daily with her words, and urged him, so that his soul was vexed unto death, that he told her all his heart, and said unto her, There hath not come a razor upon mine head, for I have been a Nazarite unto God from my mother's womb. If I be shaven, then my strength will go from me, and I shall become weak and be like any other man. And then Delilah saw that he had told her all of his heart. She sent and called for the lords of the Philistines, saying, Come up this once, for he hath showed me all his heart. Then the lord of the Philistines came up unto her and brought money in their hand. Okay, there we go. Right? 3 times. Now she's totally vexed him, vexing him unto death. It's possible that people can do that to us, right? They just never stop, relentless, until they get what they want. What was his weakness here was actually telling her, right? He should not have told her. But he loved her, obviously. He didn't believe that she could deceive. He might not have believed that she could deceive him. But he should have learned from the first time, right? He should have learned what his previous wife had done. And she made him sleep upon her knees, and she called for a man, and she caused him to shave off the 7 locks of his head, and she began to afflict him, and his strength went from him. And she said, The Philistines be upon thee, Samson. And he awoke out of his sleep and said, I will go out as at other times before, and shake myself. And he wist not that the Lord was departed from him. But the Philistines took him and put out his eyes, and brought him down to Gaza, and bound him with fetters of brass. And he did grind in the prison house. Not sure what that means, that he did grind in the prison house. Sounds like maybe hard labor of some type. Or that he was just chained up, and it was locked up in the prison. Howbeit the hair of his head began to grow again after he was shaven. So his hair began to grow back. So he'd been there for a few months probably. Then the lords of the Philistines gathered them together for to offer a great sacrifice unto Dagon, their god, and to rejoice. For they said, Our God hath delivered Samson, our enemy, into our hand. When the people saw him, they praised their God, for they said, Our God hath delivered into our hands our enemy, and the destroyer of our country, which slew many of us. And it came to pass, when their hearts were merry, that they said, Call for Samson, that he may make us sport. And they called for Samson out of the prison house, and he made them sport. And they set him between the pillars. And Samson said unto the lad that held him by the hand, Suffer me that I may feel the pillars, whereupon the house standeth, that I may lean upon them. Now the house was full of men and women, and all the lords of the Philistines were there. And there were upon the roof about 3,000 men and women that beheld while Samson made sport. Okay, so these are pretty nasty people, right? They poked out his eyes, chucked him in prison, and they're using him for sport. It's also interesting that his hair was growing back. I think the Lord, you know how once a Nazarite goes through the process of coming out of Nazarite, that it can be for a certain time of their life. They're not all up until the day they die, but his was going to be up until the day he died. But if you wanted to come out of being a Nazarite, and not be separated to God anymore, you had to go through this process, which we talked about in the previous video. And then after that process at the temple, you would shave your head, right? And then you would begin your life again. But he hadn't gone through that process, so he was technically still a Nazarite, and he had been wronged in that they shaved his head. So yes, he'd lost his strength, but it wasn't his fault that he'd lost his strength. Therefore, the Lord was still with him in his death. And Samson called unto the Lord and said, O Lord God, remember me, I pray thee, and strengthen me, I pray thee, only this once, O God, that I may be at once avenged of the Philistines for my 2 eyes. And Samson took hold of the 2 middle pillars upon which the house stood, and on which it was borne up, of the one with his right hand and the other with his left. And Samson said, Let me die with the Philistines. And he bowed himself with all his might. And the house fell upon the lords, and upon all the people that were therein. So the dead, which he slew at his death, were more than they which he slew in his life. Then his brethren and all the house of his father came down and took him, and brought him up, and buried him between Zorah and Eshtaol, in the burying place of Manoah his father. And he judged Israel 20 years. Not sure what he means, he judged Israel 20 years. I said that previously as well. Okay, so that was the end of Samson. Pretty short life by the sounds of it. But he grew up a Nazarite, was obedient, was inspired to go to Timnah to marry the woman. She betrayed him. Her whole house ended up being burnt to death. He took vengeance on the Philistines, and then they came after him, wanting him. And the Israelites took and bound him so that they didn't want to offend the Philistines, to keep the peace. So they took him as a prisoner. But his bands were broken, and he slaughtered 1,000 of them with a jawbone of an ass. But then he meets Delilah. She betrays him. He should have known that his previous wife had betrayed him. He should have learnt, but he didn't, and he was honest with her, told her how his strength came to him. She did it for money. So the first wife betrayed him for loyalty to her people and for fear of death, and the second, Delilah here, betrays him for money and also maybe loyalty to her people as well. It shows you the importance there of marrying inside your faith, because you never know fully the heart of someone, right? But if you know that someone's coming from the same background and culture and belief system, then it's a lot easier. But the Lord inspired Samson. This was meant to be, right? So this is a bit different to how we would normally say it, because if the Lord says something, then that's it. But it's good to know that the Lord answered him when he called out. So he grabbed the pillars, one in each hand, and he prayed to God. And he, what's it say? Samson, let me die with the Philistines. And he bowed himself with all his might. And the house fell upon the lords. So there's a good thing there as well. Like Samson called out to the Lord replied. Right? We've learned from his parents that they prayed that they would receive the angel, and he came back. They offered an offering, and they thought that it was actually God himself. And now you have Samson here, being inspired by the Spirit, being empowered by the Spirit, and then calling upon the name of the Lord and the Lord answering. Great stuff. It's a shame that he died so soon, but it was all the will of the Lord. And great stories, things that we can learn from. Anyway, it's getting a bit long, so appreciate you watching. Hope you got something out of that. And I know we sometimes simplify these kind of stories in movies and, cartoon comic books, comic strips or whatever, but there's a lot in here that we can learn from just in those, four chapters, so 3 chapters. Anyway, thanks for watching. Enjoy your study.